Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss 5th Sem English critical reading passages, and this passage is taken from Unit 1 of Studies. That is the title of the passage. And this passage of Studies was written by Francis Bacon in the year 1584. So he was born in 1561, that you can calculate how many years ago. And then he was born in London, and then he wrote his first political memorandum, a letter of advice to Queen Elizabeth. In 1592, to celebrate the anniversary of the Queen's coronation, he wrote an entertaining speech in praise of knowledge. So actually he was defining what knowledge was. In those days only he was able to clearly tell what is meant by knowledge. And the year 1597 marked Bacon's first publication, a collection of essays about politics. Then the collection was later expanded and again republished in 1612 and 1625. That is after his death. So that is about Francis Bacon. Students, you have a lot of information in your textbook also why he has written this particular essay of studies written by Francis Bacon. It's an essay by Francis Bacon, an English philosopher, lawyer, statesman, a patron of libraries, but remembered chiefly for the worldly wisdom of his essays. Worldly wisdom means practical knowledge of the essays. So most of the sentences in his essays read like proverbs. So usually the experts, those who are good at narrating things, they use lot of proverbs. Proverbs tell the proficiency of language. If you are in a position to use proverbs, that means you are very, very proficient in language, because unless and until you are aware of the right relevant proverb which is suitable to that particular situation, you cannot speak properly. So really a command over the proverbs tells that you are a proficient language learner. And then this essay of studies is from his collections Essays or Counsels, Civil and Moral, published in 1597. And this aphoristic essay highlights the importance of studies. Aphoristic means full of knowledge, terse. Terse means it is eloquent. There is no place for any other extra information. So he gives you complete information. That is called as aphoristic essay. So let's delve into the essay now. So first we'll discuss why and what of the essay. Actually, what does this essay consist of, and why did he write this particular essay? What is the purpose behind this essay? So in this essay, Francis Bacon highlights the importance of studies and values of learning. So the first thing he says, why should we study and how does it add a value to the learning? And then he classifies the uses of studies. Different people use studies for different purposes. So that classification we are going to learn in this particular essay. Then he discusses the effects of reading, writing, and conversing, that is speaking. So once you know how to read correctly, then you will be the masters of writing. For example, if you take your exams, only you have to write essay type answers. How many of you can write the essays on your own? So the more you read, the more will you be in a position to write. And the more you listen, the more will you be in a position to speak. So LSRWs, nowadays we talk about LSRWs. You remember? Listening, speaking, reading and writing. So in those hundreds of years ago only he discussed the effects of reading, writing and conversing. So that is again an important purpose, students. Then he went ahead to describe the different kinds of books. What do we read finally? We read books only. So what are the different kinds of books we come across? Then he went ahead to describe how to read the book. So this is very, very important, students. All of us read, but many of us do not know how to read. There are many kinds of reading. Reading for basic information, reading between the lines. Do you all know what is meant by reading between the lines? Who knows the reading between the lines meaning? Please put them in the comments box. I'll be very, very happy to see the answer. reading between the lines. Okay, then he points out how different kinds of people use studies. So what are the uses of studies? Depending upon the kind of people, the use of studies differ. So this is the text, students. Studies serve for delight, for ornament, and for ability. So first he begins, see, he doesn't beat around the bush, no introduction, directly entry into the subject. So it is saving the time of the reader, one of the best kind of technique to capture the attention of the readers. So he talks about three different purposes. First one is, we read for delight, then we read for ornamental uses, and then we read for ornamental, this person from Chennai, he has over 145 educational degree students. So what does this say? So people go on accumulating educational degrees. Honestly speaking, how many of the degrees will he be in a position to make use of? So he has degrees in many fields, psychology, economics, politics, and all. So in real life, what degree he is going to be using in his practical life? So I'm not value judging this professor's efforts, students, but here Bacon says, some people read or study for ornamental purposes or for accumulating knowledge. And for delight, when do we read for delight? When we want some kind of entertainment and enjoyment. Some of us we read poems, some of us we read stories, comics, magazines, or a kind of comedy stories, and all we read. So that means we are deriving a kind of delight, and we do it in private. Okay, we don't go to the class and read comics and provide entertainment to others. Okay, only maybe in the free period we do it, but usually we do this kind of reading when we are in our own privacy. Then ornamental, we just kind of going on accumulating the knowledge. And then the last one is for the ability. This really shows a person's strength, a person's knowledge. So how far he is going to use his knowledge of studies in the real life. So these are the three purposes Francis Bacon talks about student. And their chief use for delight is in privateness and retiring. For ornament is in discourse. Discourse means, these people, they just exhibit a kind of their knowledge, and they argue a lot. They all the time, they want to talk without without waiting for the others to listen and comprehend what they are telling. So they get involved in a kind of discourse going on, giving out the knowledge or doling out the knowledge. So that is the ornamental use. And for ability is in the judgment and disposition of business. So this is actually, they do a kind of justice if they really study for the ability. For example, somebody is a psychology teacher. So if he or she reads and studies a lot in that field, that shows their ability. But they are in the field of psychology and go on reading some politics or some economics or some kind of literature, discourses and all. Maybe it doesn't add to their ability. In their own field, if they go on improving their kind of knowledge, then it will be really useful for them. So that is how Bacon starts his essay students. They become experts in their business. For expert men can execute and perhaps judge of particulars one by one. So how do they make use of the studies one by one? But the general counsels, these experts are the professional students, professionals in their own field, whereas like lawyers, teachers, doctors and all, they execute in their own field. But for the general counsels or the advocates or the lawyers and the plots and marshalling of affairs, lawyers have to go about the plots, means find out what actually the case is about, and then marshalling of affairs, argue for the affairs. That has to take place only with, and it will take place only with the help of studies. They come best from those that are learned. How does a person become learned? When the person studies a lot. To spend too much time in studies is sloth. Again, he says, this is a little bit of contradiction. He says here you can study for these three purposes, but here he says, too much of time also should not be spent in studies, because one becomes sloth, means lazy enough. They don't get interested in doing any other work. They just confine themselves only to reading and reading and reading. They, in our common language, they are called as bookworm students. I think most of you might have heard about the term bookworms. To use them too much for ornament, that means to show off. And then the to spend too much time is affectation. What is affectation? They become attached to their degrees and qualifications, and to make judgment wholly by their rules is the humor of a scholar. Humor means they become a joke of the knowledge. So they do not do a kind of justice to what they study. That's what Bacon feels. It's not my personal opinion, student. It is the Bacon's um, perspective. And then and it is my way of interpreting. If you have a different way of interpreting, please comment in the comment section. See, literature after all is one's interpretation. How we understand, how we comprehend, it's up to us. So it's a total personal thing. So if you feel there is some other kind of interpretation, please come out. They perfect nature and are perfected by experience. Who? The person who read for ability. They are they are natural learners, and they perfect in the nature and are perfected by experience. Whatever they study, it is actually added on by their experience. For application in day-to-day life, we apply it. Suppose we learn something about repairing a fan, we read it theoretically, but literally if there is a problem in the home and we are not able to repair it, and again we call for the expert or the person who repairs it, it's of no use. The studying is of no use. So, and one study should be perfected by experience. Like, so these are the natural abilities. Adding studies to the personal growth and personal experience, it's like a natural abilities. And these natural abilities are like natural plants. So Bacon is comparing the ability to natural plants. And what do the natural plants need? They need pruning. So what is pruning, students? I think you all know pruning. Pruning is actually cutting the trees into proper shape. They are not allowed to grow haphazardly and give a kind of disturbed kind of appearance. So the appearance is regulated and controlled by a technique called pruning for the plants, and same technique Bacon says it has to be used by the natural abilities or the persons who improve upon their studies for improving their ability. So pruning should be needed even for studies, and studies themselves do give forth directions too much at large, except they be bounded in by experience. So this experience works like a pruning. We read lots and lots of things, lots of books. Do you think all the books are going to be useful for us? So we get a kind of knowledge to dodge the books, to separate or to segregate the books which are useful for us. Okay, these many books are there in front of me in the library. So which are the books which are really going to be useful for them? So that kind of pruning is very, very needed, he says, and that becomes a natural ability. So that, a person becomes complete. Crafty men condemn studies, simple men admire them, and wise men use them. So these are the three different types of people who express their opinion on studies. So what do the crafty men or the cunning men say? They condemn studies. They say, what is the use of study? Why should we study? For example, some of your classmates or the friends may say, hey, kya padna hai re ganton bar baith ke. So they say, why should we read for hours together and hours together? So just before the examination, they sit and prepare. So they condemn studies. They don't give much importance to studies. And simple men admire them. So some of you, you read the stories and you admire them. At the same time, wise men use them. Suppose this particular essay you are reading, and now you will come to know what are the types of reading you have to follow in your life. So, and you also come to know the purposes. Now, the moment you take a book, you will understand whether you're reading it for delight or whether you're reading just for a showcase or just for showing up or like it's an ornament, or you are really going to improve upon your ability. So that is how wise men use them. So this is the first part of your essay, students, how Bacon says about the studies. Let's move on to the next part of the lesson. So after that natural ability like pruning, what do these people, the able people who knows how to study, they do? For they teach not their own use, but that is a wisdom without them. So something, very clearly explained, and unless and until they explain, there is no wisdom in that. Only half knowledge we get it. So we need their help a lot. So it's not that they are reading for their own use. They are showing their ability to help the society. And above them, one by observation. How do you think they got that kind of ability? After reading, they started observing. They started applying their knowledge to the real life situations. So that observation really helps them like a natural ability. And they tell us, read not to contradict and confute. So just because you have lot of knowledge and you gained a lot of control over the books, do not use them to contradict others or to look down upon others. In my personal life, I have come across a spiritual leader who always condemns and contradicts people. If anyone expresses a kind of doubt, no, you are a misfit to join this spiritual discourse. This is how he confutes, he refutes people. So that should not be the reading or the kind of knowledge you are gaining for as a natural ability. So your observation should not provoke you to contradict or confute others. You become knowledgeable, no doubt, when you read and when you study a lot. But that kind of knowledge, that kind of nature should not be developed. And don't read anything to gain knowledge to contradict others and confute others. And not to believe and take for granted. Just because I am telling something, you should not believe and you should not take it for granted, or not to find talk and discourse. Just because I'm arguing or I'm telling you some points, you should not blindly believe. You should study on your own, gain knowledge, and come to your own decision, your own opinion about studies. That's what Bacon was telling students. Imagine some hundreds of years ago he told something, and to this day we are applying it. We are discussing his essays. And but to weigh and consider, just don't believe others, but you have to weigh them. You have to find out how much reliable their talk was and then consider whether you can consider them or not. That is the important purpose of your studies. So some books are to be tasted. These are the types of books he is going to tell us, students. Okay, some books are to be tasted, others to be swallowed, and some few to be chewed and digested. This I'll apply to you only, students. You are studying just for tasting. That means only superficial knowledge, like a comic you are reading something. Just before the examinations you read. That is, you are trying to taste it. Okay, it's recently that kind of reading is called as skimming. Skimming means you just browse the headlines and you try to get the knowledge. Like how we read the newspapers, we just browse the headlines. So that is a kind of skimming. And others to be swallowed. So comprehension. What is comprehension? Comprehension is understanding. Okay, so sometimes we try to understand what we are studying, that is swallowing them. And the last one is some few to be chewed and digested. This is the reason, students, some of the students like Sanya and Divyani, they requested me to give this video for critical reading. Why? Because they want to chew it and digest it, thoroughly understand it, thoroughly go with a focused reading for these passages. That is the kind of ability you are going to get it. That is the real importance of studying. I really appreciate you students who have really requested me to make videos on these topics especially. So just now you might have read these passages. Maybe you required somebody's help or somebody's assistance to a scaffolding, a kind of scaffolding to reach to understand these lines. And these are archaic English sentences, students, very difficult to read it with correct kind of intonation and correct kind of pausing. Though they have commas, you should know how to break the sentence and synthesize the meaning. So those days, the scholars, there is a lot of difference between those days English and the latest English students. English has undergone a lot of evolution over the period of these hundreds of years. So I really felt very happy, students, when you really requested me just before the examinations. You requested me to give the explain these passages. Okay, so these are the three types of books. Some are to be tasted, some are to be swallowed, and some are to be chewed and digested. Thorough kind of understanding without any gap in the information. There should not be any word which bothers you. That should be the total purpose of reading. It should be chewed and digested. So that is, some books are to be read only in parts, others to be read but not curiously, and some few to be read wholly. Wholly means completely, and with diligence means you give total attention, you spend a lot of time in reading it. That is a complete reading and attention. So there is no distraction when you are reading something. That is the last kind of book. Some books also may be read by deputy and extracts made of them by others. Deputy means some others paraphrasing the books for you, some others explaining or writing a critical analysis on the book. That is called as deputy. So somebody else has written a summary. Some of you browse the internet for the summary of this passage or any text you are reading. So that is deputy. And extracts made of them by others. Some others, they made extracts or the meanings or the line by line expression, explanation. Your guides, your popular guide, what is that? SIA, SIA, you call it SIA. So that is extracts made of them by others. So, but that would be only in the less important arguments and the meaner sort of books. Else, distilled books are like common distilled waters. You know the distilled water, students, how the distilled water is prepared. It is actually boiled and the vapors are collected so that they are completely totally devoid of any kind of substances in that. Only water, no minerals, nothing will be there in that water. That is distilled water. So if you are reading somebody else's, it is like distilled water, they say, flashy things. When you read on your own and try to interpret, try to comprehend, then it becomes a true kind of reading. So he says, finally he very beautifully defines reading, students. Reading maketh a full man, conference a ready man, and writing an exact man. So if you simply read, okay, no doubt you become a full person or a full human being. Man here does not mean only a male person, student. Here it represents the entire humanity, humankind. Okay. Conference a ready man and writing an exact man. Conference, when you talk, you are a ready man, means you have knowledge. You are ready with all the points. And writing an exact man. Writing is a higher order skill out of the four skills. So when you are in a position to write on your own, underline, students, on your own, then you are an exact man. And therefore, if a man write little, he had need have a great memory. Look at the twisting of the word, students, here. So if he writes little, then he had no doubt a great memory. If he confer a little, means if he talks or if he grants, confer means granting the knowledge. Little, he had need have a present wit. Wit means a greater ability to present in a very meaningful way. And if he read little, he had need have much cunning to seem to know that he doth not. Actually, if he simply reads and leaves it, after reading he should talk and he should grant the knowledge. Then only he becomes a complete man. Otherwise, he is just a crafty person, or he is trying to act or pretending that he knows a lot. And he seems to know that he does not. That is a very archaic word, students, for means ancient English for does not. Does not is written as doth not. So this is the text, students. Let us move on to the comprehension question. Hope you understood. Still, if any word or any term is bothering you, do not hesitate to put it in the comment section. Let us try to answer these questions, students. First one, what three purposes do studies serve? Do you remember the three purposes? They study for delight, for ornament, and for ability. You can expand this answer, student. Write one or two lines about Francis Bacon, what type of essayist he is, and what type of wisdom he is trying to impart through his essays. For every question, you write two or three lines of his introduction and then write the answer. I have just given the phrases, you can expand, I know it. So these are the three purposes: for delight, for ornament, and for ability. What are the books we read for delight, for ornament, how we improve upon our educational qualifications, and then for ability. What does too much time spent in studies indicate? What does it indicate? It indicates sloth or laziness. So if a person is spending too much time, he is becoming like a bookworm. He is not attending to his real life situations. He is not interested in the other things he has to do as part of his responsibility. So one should not become a bookworm. That is what he is telling here. He becomes lazy enough. Third question, what does the use of study for too much ornament lead to? That's what you are going on, studying and going on, improving upon your qualifications, adding degrees to your biodata. So what does it lead to? So it leads to affectation. Affectation means you become too much attached and it lacks application. You don't know why you are reading, you don't know why you are gathering those qualifications and all. And also it provokes one to fake his knowledge. He shows off he's knowledgeable, but actually there will be zilch. That means no knowledge within them. We come across such persons in our life also. Students highly qualified, highly experienced and all. But when they talk for say for an hour, at the end of the speech we get it out. What did he or she tell? What did he or she talk for so long? So you try to try to gather the knowledge out of their discourses. So if you read for ornament, it provokes you to fake your knowledge. That's what Francis Bacon feels. Fourth question, what are the natural abilities in a person compared to? What do they need? So natural abilities are compared to natural plants and they need pruning, cutting to be polished and developed through studies. All the abilities have to be developed through studies and they have to be polished. That means the kind of neat appearance and it should really make you full, make you complete. The knowledge should not have any kind of gaps. If we are talking on a particular subject in an official event, then you should give complete knowledge. There should not be any gaps. If somebody questions a person who is giving a discourse, he should not lose his temper. He should not be irritated if somebody asks doubts. So that is what has to happen with the natural abilities. Who condemns studies, who admires them, and who uses them? You all remember, crafty people condemn studies, simple men admire, and wise men use them. Whatever they study, they use it in their life. Last question, what are the different kinds of reading discussed by Francis Bacon? Um, the first type of books have to be tasted. That means they have to be read in parts or just skim through the books. Some have to be swallowed, means not thoroughly read, but they have to be understood. They have to be comprehended. And then some have to be chewed and digested. That means those books are read with focused attention, adding some meaning to to those books. That is the third type of book, students. Then coming to the critical thinking questions, these are important. They may ask you any question from these questions, students. You can combine all these answers you can expand these answers and combine them into 2 or 3 paragraphs. That will become an answer for these questions. Unlike there are some particular questions, let me check for you. Do you agree or disagree with Bacon's views on studies? Justify your response. So you can combine all these answers and then finally you write whether you agree or disagree. Or the first sentence should be your opinion, students. I totally agree with Bacon's views on studies, or I partially agree with Bacon's views on studies, or I totally disagree with Bacon's views on studies. That's why that's how you're going to start your answer in your introduction. Of course, introduction will be author's introduction. Second paragraph would be your opinion, your expression. Then justify your response. You can talk about all this. If you don't agree or if you agree, you can write. Second question, does learning take place only from books? Is knowledge contained only in books? Yes, you all know it's not only from books, it's from the real experience. You remember the second point I talked to you? It should be resonated with experience. Whatever we study, we should add our experience. Then it becomes a complete knowledgeable source. How did people learn before the printing of books? So before when they were no book students, they were learned only by rote memory. They just repeated and repeated. Ratmarna in Hindi ways they say, Valle Veyatam in Telugu they say. So they went on repeating the things, and that's how they learnt the knowledge when the printing of books was not there. Somebody used to teach them, they used to just listen and repeat. That is how they read. How was knowledge recorded before the printing book came into existence? Before the printing book came into existence, the people wrote on leaves, palm leaves, and they wrote on, they inscribed on stones. That's what we find in temples and all. The inscriptions we have that. So these kind of writings were there. What are oral traditions? Do you know any of them? Yes, oral traditions, when you tell a story, when you narrate, when you sing a song, when you recite a poem, that becomes an oral tradition, students. In the villages or our grandparents, did you ever observe how they talk to us, how they impart their knowledge through proverbs? Are the folk songs are there? Beautiful folk songs are there. Are there. You might have listened to the folk songs full of meaning. And then, yeah, if you know any of them, you can give the examples of the folk songs or the folk traditions and all, oral traditions, how they talk. Even the religious heads also, they discourse, students. They give a lot of discourse on the spiritual things. The religious heads discourses also you can mention as an oral tradition. What are the different sources of learning in today's world? Today's world is, sky is the limit for today's world. You have your digital media, you have your libraries, you have your encyclopedias, so many things, the social media, uh, sky is the limit for them. Okay, these are the sources of learning. Bacon uses the words full man, ready man, and exact man. Does it reveal a gender bias? That's what I was telling. Those days, they used to refer to as man only, but it should not be taken as only man. It can be applied to women also. There is no gender bias in that. Should we understand these phrases in the context of women too? Yes, it applies to women also. Imagine if Bacon had written this essay about women. Reread, reread the paragraph replacing man with woman. Reread the passage using gender sensitive language. So wherever the man is there, students, you write person. If a person knows, or if a person reads, and instead of making a full, like a full man, ready man, you can say full person, ready person, and exact person. So person is a gender sensitive word. It doesn't specifically tell it's only a man or a woman. That is how it goes on, students. Hope I made sense out of this, students. Hope you all understood the lesson clearly, or the reading passage, the critical reading passage. And if you still have any doubts, do not hesitate. Okay, we'll put them in the comment section. And all the best for your examinations. So on 19th you have your exams. That's what I came to know. And then if any queries are there, okay, come out and put them in the comment section. And yeah, that means a lot. And then, okay, if you really made sense out of this talk or the tutorial, okay, if you don't hesitate to hit that like button, please hit that like button and share. Share, I always request you or advise you, students, because many students, they don't know that these videos are there, because my channel is not that popular channel. So unless and until you share it, this will not reach the other students who are in need. Please, it's a request from my side. And the subscription, okay, it's up to you whether you want to subscribe or not. I told you it's not a full-fledged channel. I don't have a niche. I do in a haphazard manner, like no pruning to my channel. Okay, students, bye bye for now. Take care. Let's meet up in the next video.